Hola everyone, in today's game review we are going to see Megaman Rock and Roll. For those that don't know, Megaman Rock and Roll is a Megaman fangame made by Dennis, and aims to offer a different spin on the formula, trying to differentiate itself from other fangames. But, will he succeed? Well, we're about to find out. This is TheRubenazo, and you're watching Spaniard Reviews. Megaman Rock and Roll. Let's go! Let's learn a bit about the story. Megaman Rock and Roll starts in the year 20XX. A mysterious giant building shows up from nowhere within the depths of the ocean and starts to release flying machines, abducting 8 of the most advanced robots. Months later, they reappear reprogrammed, causing havoc around the city while more robots are abducted to join the enemy's forces. Pretty standard story, but I like how the dev gives us a little throwback showcasing robot masters from other games in these cutscenes, which are drawn beautifully. In this game there's 2 playable characters, Rock, or as more commonly known as Megaman, and Roll. Each one has their own playstyle while having some standard moves that makes a classic Megaman character work. Let's say that you have a hard time with platforming in general. What character should I use? Well, I would recommend you Roll. She has a double jump that you can use to reach higher platforms, correct jumps, or save yourself from a bottomless pit. But she cannot charge shots and will take more damage per hit. Instead of Rush, she will have Beat instead, but it won't show up until 4 Robot Masters are beaten. Instead, if you have difficulties with combat and you need more firepower, I will recommend you Rock. He can charge shots and takes less damage per hit. Rush Coil won't show up until you have beaten 2 Robot Masters, and the same goes for Rush Jet with 6 Robot Masters. The bare basics of Megaman-like characters are still there for both. Jumping, shooting lemons, sliding, and going up ladders are still the same as you remember. Having 2 separate options that tackle weak spots a player might have is really beneficial. It increases accessibility, encourages replayability, and balances the player's skill. While this might appear as a simple intro stage, there's more than meets the eye. While the game teaches you the basics, you'll see how the actual events of the game takes place in real time in front of you. This approach makes the intro level one of the most unique ones I have ever played. Megaman Rock Force, another fangame, tries to do a similar thing, but in comparison, Megaman Rock and Roll not only expands further, but gives you more to mess around. And there's not only one tutorial stage, there's 2 in total. But these tutorials are camouflaged so well that you won't think stuff like, I want to skip this, or oh god, a tutorial. The first intro stage will make you go through part of the city where you see the same robot masters you already know getting abducted while teaching you how to play Rock. At the end of the stage we can see Protoman and Roll trying to escape the chaos. Protoman gets abducted and Megaman jumps to save Roll. This is the main plot point of the game and why the game is called Rock and Roll. Going back to the cutscene, she is now forced to accept that she is the only one capable of freeing Megaman. Dr. Light shows a bit of discomfort. You can clearly tell he does not want to send Roll, but Roll's confidence makes him realize that there's no other choice. So he accepts and modifies Roll into a combat robot, sending her to Rock's rescue. The second intro stage teaches you about Roll's mechanics. You cannot go through this part without double jumping, and the game teaches you how to do it within its level design. No text, no icons, nothing, which shows the attention to detail this level has. After a few screens, you will see something not expected for a Megaman game. There's stealth sections. This teaches you that you can tackle it in 2 ways. You can brute force and sound all the alarms, or you can take a more careful approach to avoid getting hit. This complements Roll taking more damage per hit, and players will inevitably try to get hit as less as possible. While snooping around, more world building will be showcased. The same robot masters you saw getting abducted in the first intro stage can be seen in pods being sent somewhere. Same goes for Protoman and Megaman. Once you find him, another tutorial stage will begin. Yes, inside the tutorial. It starts as a normal escape route, but the developer, as sneaky as he is, throws you an excuse for making you go through an underwater stage while throwing you little scripted events, which you can see yourself. The stage select, like in any classic Megaman title, lets you choose from 8 different robot masters, which are Drakeman, Polar Woman, Missile Man, Ghost Woman, Reactor Man, Beetle Lady, and Tide Man. Each stage has a collectible, and 4 of these robot masters contain one of those abducted robots you saw in the tutorial section. You can always return to beaten stages to get collectibles or free those ally bosses I spoke about and leave at any time by locating the exit button at the bottom right corner of the weapons menu. You can also press the I button, which gives you useful information of each robot master. Let's start with our scaly boy, Drake Man. First of all, I want to mention that not only in this level, but all of them have a pattern that solidifies my suspicions about the dev having some kind of background in level design. Throughout all the stages, you will see something new getting shown in a safe or safe-ish environment. Then another new thing is showcased, ending into a mix to further increase difficulty. And this same formula is repeated throughout the entire game, and it's done almost perfectly in Drakeman, for example. Like in all stages, you can see how the tile set, level design and enemy design, alongside the boss, fuses together in an organic, aesthetically gorgeous, well-built stage. But out of all of them, this one has a couple things that shouldn't have been changed. First, these 3 pillars. There wasn't enough wiggle room. Moving the roof one tile up will have helped since this part is at the beginning of the stage and shouldn't be this difficult. And the second is this rising lava section. It starts pretty slow, yes, but the entire sequence is stitched together. There's no sequences where the lava is always slow or always fast, which threw me off the first time I went through it. Maybe a few less enemies or the lava being slower at the end could have fixed this issue, but I was able to beat this with a couple tries. Okay now, so Drakeman's boss fight is quite fast and I will honestly not recommend him as the first boss to go against. He has 4 moves in total, but the only ones you need to pay close attention are Fire Spread and the Fake Glide. There's times where he will actually glide to the opposite side, and some where he will fake a glide and land on the platform. So be prepared when he finishes his fire attack after sliding the walls. So, if I had to put Drakeman into a tier list, I would probably put him into Will Kick Your Ass. Because it will. It took me a couple of lives to defeat him, but once I did, really rewarding. Beating him will grant you Fire Breath, which is the weapon I used the most throughout the game. It deals a lot of damage, and enemies dying from it will burst into flames in 4 directions. So why don't we switch temperatures and go against Polar Woman, shall we? This is another beautifully crafted stage, and there's a few things I would like to add. First, I really liked how the whales are used. At the beginning, you are going to see the whale being used as a support to help you reach higher platforms, but it is also used as a hazard with just a simple tweak. Second, and this is not a good one, is about the final screen before the boss entrance. The waterfall is placed there in a weird position. I had the unfortunate luck of thinking I was safe, and died in that spot. Showing the boss door at the end is a symbol of a safe spot. There's nothing that's going to hurt you for a while, and having a hole covered with a waterfall is a cheap shot at taking lives, and it really baffles me that the dev made the choice to include that. Next comes the battle against Polar Woman herself. Overall, she's easier to manage than the previous one, especially roll with its double jump. If you want to have an easier time, use Fire Breath against her. Melting her will grant you the Snow Roller, which is considered a stun weapon type. It will freeze enemies and turn them into platforms for a brief period of time. It also does damage as well, but it's not useful if you plan to use it to damage foes only. And it didn't make me feel the urge to use enemies as platforms at all. Well, it's time to get wet, because we are going to fight against Tideman. This stage, when it comes to aesthetics, is the best one by far. The deep water, the music, backgrounds, the tile set, everything comes together in this fantastic water level. You won't be able to use Dragon Breath for the entire stage. It's a nice touch of realism, although it basically removes the useful amount of weapons lower. Dragon Breath, alongside a couple more weapons, are the only ones I actually use throughout the entire game. If I had to decide, I will think that it's not that bad. Being unable to pull it off in this stage doesn't bother me at all. A good change for some of them to actually be useful. I especially love the mid-boss, that instead of a normal light, he has a health drop. I won't lie, that made me smile. But Tideman as a boss is just pathetic. Don't get me wrong, I love how he's introduced way before you fight him in the background. I also love his design, but the attack patterns are awfully easy to dodge and really predictable for the first time. You can brute force the entire boss fight without paying as much or any attention, and you'll breeze through it. As for myself, I managed to kill the boss with half of my life bar as roll. At least, if you are really new to Megaman as a whole, Titanman is a good start as your first robot master to defeat. Kicking his ass will grant you the Bubble Shield, which ironically is the best weapon in the entire game. Not only is a shield that you can wear while moving, while defeating simple enemies, a speedrunner's wet dream, it also makes you rise to the top if you are in contact with water. But it's well balanced. It will pop after a few minor hits or after a single hit with some larger and more dangerous enemies. Put your hazmat suit, because it's Reactor Man time. I said, put your hazmat suit, because it's Reactor Man time. Why are you not doing it? Oh. I really like how clear and transparent this stage is when it comes to level design. First, normal moving lasers, then pushing buttons to turn off said lasers for a bit, expanding further with a disco ball that shines in all directions when the laser gets hit. The introduction, mix, and evolution of its mechanics are for me the most clear here. Perfect case of good level design. Again, I don't know how many times I already said this, but believe me, I'm going to say it a lot more times. Compared to Titanman, Reactor Man is slightly harder to the point of actually being a hazard if you are careless. The only attack I will say you need to watch out for is the shockwave and basic laser attack. If you want to have an easier time with him, use Snow Roller. Yes, you heard me, Snow Roller against Reactor Man. Can someone explain why is his weakness? It doesn't make any sense. Is it because snow is white and reflects light? I don't know. This is another solid stage, but thank God the inspiration didn't turn into bullshittery, because if this turned into this, destroying him to pieces will reward you with charged laser. This fires a constant laser beam that melts through weaker enemies. As for the use I gave it, it was used only in some key instances like boss weaknesses. I think this one is good as it is, just by the fact that it has the outcome of charging batteries placed throughout some of the stages. Oh, excuse Platman's behavior. He's not having a good time. By the way, where is he going? I feel like a broken record if I keep saying solid stage. But it's just true, every single stage is very solid and I don't have any actual problems with its level design. Beetle Lady compared to the previous one is actually quite hard, just because of a simple attack, the dandelion projectiles. She will always use her wings to move the dandelions towards you, and unless you are playing as Roll with Fire Breath in this one, you are going to need to time slides in a very precise order, which is quite ironic if we remember Megaman is the best one at combat. Sorry Rock, but no one can match Roll. Her weapon is one of the most original but useless weapons in the entire game. This was almost never used, except for a couple instances like Dune Woman, because one, it's her weakness, and second, because I wanted to try it out to see how it will act inside a real stage. And besides that, I don't like waiting for the weapon to do its job. Waiting is something I don't consider fun. If you could still use your normal buster while the drones are active, then I will consider this weapon to actually be fun to use. I can still see this being used as a helpful tool to defeat annoying enemies, but it still goes into the bottom tier of usefulness. Up next is Ghost Woman. I have to mention that her stage takes me back when I first played Megaman 6. Nightman's was one of the best levels. Looking at the vibrant green tone this level had with the purple background is something I will never forget and makes me glad Ghost Woman is here. If I had to compare the two, nostalgia aside, I would say that Ghost Woman's level design does a better job at nailing the medieval castle aesthetic. Not just because of its art, but because it is solidified even further with the unique enemies you face, like these ones over here. Another thing I wanted to mention is that you can actually see Nightman as a secret NPC in this stage. Sadly, there's always going to be one bad thing that returns, and it's the damn Yoku blocks. These disappearing and appearing bastards will always get into any fan game, but it looks like Dennis knew they were coming and throwing them well to not be an annoyance. Every Yoku block encounter is really well crafted and won't make you pull your eyes out in stress, especially if you play as Roll. Screw you Yoku blocks, all my homies hate Yoku blocks. Once you enter the boss chamber, you will... Wait, where's the boss? Did the game crash? Did it really? I am not sorry. Anyways, Ghost Woman's difficulty relies in her teleportation. You won't know in what window she will end up in, so it's better to finish her as fast as possible. That's where the laser charge comes into play. Once she shows herself, tap the fire button. She will go down easily. If you don't do it faster and her soul trap hits you,
you will be temporarily stunned in the air and she will do a charge attack at you a good bunch of times. This ghostly entity, upon its defeat, will give you the Soul Trap weapon. But I'm sorry, its main mechanic is too gimmicky to actually be useful on the average stage. Not once, I have thought, oh shoot, thank god I have this, throughout the entire game, and it remained always filled in my weapon screen. Move aside, Beetle Drone! The most useless weapon is now in the house. Dune Woman's stage is just beautiful. The yellow sand and the purple stone contrasts quite well. The beginning starts you in a desert with structures synced inside, but it slowly changes into a temple. It can be seen that this stage was inspired by Arabian culture, and I think it does a good job representing some of it. Fighting her will be quite a challenge since she likes to deceive the player with her sandy doppelganger and tornado spin. Especially, watch out for the last one. The range of the tornado is too wide, and even if you are in the middle when it happens, unless you're spamming slide like crazy, it will get to you. I think this move is not well balanced. Changing it so you can outrun the tornado at any proximity with well-timed slides would make this battle, let's just say, more fair to the player. Defeating her gives you Desert Storm, a really handy weapon that clears half of the screen depending on the side you look. Really useful for getting rid easily of most enemies, especially mets. It has a really few uses per full charge, so it's recommended to not spam it until it's completely necessary. Having something that acts similar like a screen wipe is always great to have in any classic Megaman game. Fangame or not, I think it should be a requirement for any upcoming fangame to implement a weapon of this type. Defeating all 8 Robot Masters will progress the story, and after a cute non-gameplay cutscene, we are thrown into the first stage. At this point, the game will start to force you to play both characters, independently if you played only as Megaman or Roll before. This is necessary to keep gameplay fresh enough to not get boring, but it also makes sense story-wise. After all, if after Roll saving Rock she didn't have any other appearances, it wouldn't be nonsensical to call this game Rock and Roll, don't you? Let me be clear, the game really benefits from doing this because alongside the more linear approach to the level design, which helps find a good difficulty curve by the way, fleshes out the maximum potential of both characters. One second, before we keep going, for the aspiring level designers, a smooth difficulty curve is what you want to have when designing a game. Make the game too easy and the players will get bored. Make it too difficult and the players will be frustrated. Don't test your levels quite enough and you might have difficulty spikes. So it's important to maintain a good difficulty curve. It will never be diagonal and flat, but try your best at replicating it. Now that I made clear what is a difficulty curve, let's return to the video. The same stage you play through at the beginning is back, but it's substantially harder, including the stealth elements and the number of insta-kill objects. And since each branch is specifically made for them, it's not easy with Roll like last time, because the dev made sure you use the double jump to its maximum potential. After you finish a branch with one, you will have to do with the other. And once both are done, you will fight the boss. This one forces you into swapping characters because the platforms that help you get the necessary altitude will disappear over time. A really smart and non-intrusive way to force the player into switching. And this is not the only time you will encounter this. After defeating the boss, you might think to yourself, who's behind all this? But nah, of course you already know who it was. It was Dr. Light.
Dr. Wily.
Dr. Wily, of course, but not only Wily shows up. The ally bosses that you might have rescued along the way will show up too, and they are required if you want to get the best ending. But I only will talk about this later. The now known Wily Castle stages is where the game splits. You have 2 available levels at the start and you can tackle them in any order you want. Megaman infiltrates the robot factory and weapons depot, while Roll goes inside the power supply and research labs. They are just not Wily 1 and 2, which besides of giving them actual names, it will help you understand their aesthetics and the level design choice. All the enemies you have faced in a specific stage will be thrown in and remixed. And besides the already established mechanics, there will be a few more exclusively for these stages. The first one I'm going to go through is Robot Factory. Robot Factory takes place in the main entrance of the castle, so Rock starts outside in the sea and quickly goes within the castle's insides. This entire sequence is all about mets, normal mets, child mets, helicopter mets, grab mets, jumping mets. Sorry, my brain shut off due to the met infection. Where were we? Oh yes, you are going to explode with so many met variants. Absolutely powerless against the mighty Bubble Shield. There were so many enemies waiting in every corner that it helped me absorb some of the damage I could have taken. You can never be too careful. The next boss you're going to encounter, it's called... 1 second. Met Grabber. Huh. I don't get it. This grabbing maniac will grab and throw you meds from the floor. There will be occasional jumping meds in between, and the pattern, even though it's consistent, will throw you off thanks to these meds and the slow movement you have while moving through the med-infested floor. Thanks, meds. Power supply is located on the rooftop entrance. Like Robot Factory, you will start outside the castle and finish inside. A good change happens here, and it's that the previously fought bird robots, instead of throwing you a normal egg that cracks and releases tiny birds, will throw a fake egg that will change suddenly its direction in the moment your height meets theirs. You can clearly see how the power supply name of the stage comes into play when they reintroduce robot sparks, and most importantly, a new stage gimmick, the light bulbs. The light bulb mechanic is a deviation from Yoku blocks. Instead of automatically cycling, you need to shoot at the light bulb in order to change their state, and it's introduced fairly well. Since you are close to the endgame and since stakes are already high, the new mechanic will go from 0 to 100 real fast, testing your adaptability to unknown threats in a really short amount of time. The most memorable part of this stage is without a doubt the final section before the boss. In there you will need to act fast and reach the end before the giant laser beam from the bottom touches you, culminating in a mix between adaptation and precise platforming. If you aren't able to adapt fast enough, you will quickly lose all your lives. The boss is kinda funny. The first time you enter the chamber, you will get stuck inside them, getting mad in the process and ejecting you. This is not a silly one-time joke though, it's a subtle way of telling you its weakness. Okay, we cycle back again with Megaman and the weapons depot. In here we see yet again another stage mechanic, explosive crates. They stay motionless, but any lethal projectile will start a chain reaction. Weapons like the Bubble Shield, yet again Bubble Shield reigns supreme, and Snow Roller are perfect for avoiding unnecessary f***ups. But you will need to act quick, or these fireboys will hit any crate they wish. There's also an underwater segment, which helps shake the little design a bit and making it less stale. You can't do much with explosive crates after all. And yes, the path towards the boss is clearly inspired from Mega Man 1. Down to the water, coming from the left, and torpedoes suddenly coming from the right. Bubble Shield doesn't do much since they explode on contact, so better spam the Buster or use Snowballer to freeze enemies. And the boss is inspired from Mega Man 1 as well. But there's so many instances where I could just repeat this phrase over and over, so I would just talk about the rest in a separate part of this review from now on. This bubbly foe will change faces every time you deal enough damage. If you still have some ammo left from the laser charge, now it's time to use it. Finally we come to the single character only stage that remains, Research Labs. I got surprised on the stage select. I thought it was going to be just a normal stage, but having the screen totally inverted out of nowhere with glitchy paths, already gave me a hint that gravity will be inverted. And it is kinda. Let me explain. The beginning of the level might look like a standard level with a simple new enemy to face. But going further, you'll start to see screens wrapping themselves on the X-axis and later on in the Y-axis, breaking the boundaries of traditional platforming where common rules like bottomless pits and unreachable roofs are out of the question. What I thought was going to be the least interesting level turned out to be memorable like the rest of the stages. Now, the boss is something I didn't expect, and it's a giant Yoku block. You know what this means to me? This is for all the pain I have suffered! You're still breaking the traditional rules of platforming though, so you will need to add looping pits into the equation while fighting it. And Roll's double jump here comes really handy. Now, if you want to discover and play the special stage without any spoilers, here's a timestamp. But for everyone else, let's continue. So, after going through all the 4 stages, you'll have 2 options depending if you save the 4 ally Robot Masters scattered throughout some of the Robot Master stages, which are Fireman, Skullman, Honey Woman, and Dagger Man. And each one's location is found in a Robot Master that complements themselves. Okay, so where do you think Fireman is located? Well, Fireman is fire, Drakeman is about lava, so he has to be somewhere within that stage. The secret paths you need to go through to find them are a bit over the place when it comes to how hard it is to find them. Allies like Fireman and Daggerman are easy to spot. Honey Woman requires looking around corners, as Skullman is practically invisible unless you paid attention to Bubble Shield being able to float on water. Having some spots that are in plain sight and others that are totally hidden is not a good decision design-wise because of how open the level design structure is at the beginning of the game. You have 8 Robot Masters to choose from the start, so the difficulty of each one has to be around the same. There's no linear progression unlike Wily's castle. Or all of them are in plain sight or all of them are hidden. There shouldn't be a mix. I want to mention as well that each ally boss is not just a boss chamber, but a throwback to their respective stages and their music as well. Don't worry though, the attack patterns of the bosses have been adjusted. Fireman isn't going to have a mental breakdown mid-fight. So, if you finish the previous Wily stages and save all of the ally bosses, Escape Route will be available. This stage is all about Protoman's escape from its pod, and remembering how level design works, Dennis will, again, teach you how to play by using the level design itself, but it ramps up in difficulty even higher than before in a split second. Some might rant on how hard this stage is compared to the final one, but I think it's well deserved since it's a stage that requires some extra effort to unlock. Speaking of the level itself, you will see previously never seen returning enemies and mechanics, like spinning platforms at the Bum Bum Bum. No, I'm not messing around, that's the official name. But the best part is a returning boss, Copy Robot. This boss has 3 clear phases, each one has their own health bar and attack pattern. So in theory, you will fight against 3 bosses simultaneously with no breaks in between. So I hope you have a couple E-tanks.
Even though I understand that this boss was meant to be extra hard, I think that shaving off a bit of the maximum health bar for each phase could have eased a bit the amount of frustration I had while fighting it. I even had 2 E-tanks that I wasted in this fight. Once this thing took all my lives, I got sent back to the beginning with no E-tanks.
On to Wily 5. This level is quite special, not because it has a specific path for each character, but because it has modular difficulty. What do I mean by this? Well, modular difficulty is a concept where depending on what the player did previously, they will have an easier or harder time on the later part of the adventure. The boss chambers you find before the boss rush aren't there for show. They contain one of 2 things depending if you rescue the ally boss that represents it. You will have to A. Fight the ally boss, or B. Fight a small enemy. So going out of your way to save your friends will, unwillingly, reduce the difficulty of this stage. And that's something I haven't seen a Fangame do, which is remarkable. After all of this, you will encounter the typical Megaman trope, a boss rush before the final boss. But remember all of this, whoever you finish with at the last Robot Master will get captured. So if you finish the last one as Roll, she will be captured, forcing you to go to the last mini stage as Megaman and vice versa. And no, you can't use the same character to beat all of them, you will be alternating characters again. Yes, each character has half of the boss, and the game expects you to multitask both of them. It's similar like the first boss you encountered on Wily's castle, but cranked up to its maximum. You're not going to progress unless you maximize speed, efficiency, and multitasking. In order to inflict damage to this beast, you will need to hit the red weak spot on each side, which will open the opposite eye, the boss's weakness. This got really frustrating just because of one thing, the eyes. They will close if you don't deal hits consistently, and it's already hard trying to shoot while the floor below you moves and desynchronizes you. So having the eye always remain open once you hit the weak spot enough and closing once you deal enough damage would have been a smart decision that could have saved me a couple cuss words.
Oh, did I tell you that there's 3 phases in this boss fight? No? And that there's no checkpoints in between? Nada. Oh well, now you know about it. Each phase has their own unique weak spot and behaviors. I already spoke about the first part, but the second phase, I don't have anything of value to say here.
Now, the third phase both surprises me and disappoints me. It surprises me because it still managed to implement both characters in the fight, and it disappoints me because it's yet again another Wily capsule fight. I would have liked something more original to end this, but it's still a good solid fight regardless. Once you beat it, congratulations, roll credits. Look at these cute cutscenes, don't they cheer your mood? Don't they cheer you up? Okay, so if you are going to see the entire sequence, there's something I need to tell you. At the end of it, there's a part that is really emotional. And I don't want to show you this. Not because it's bad, not because it's shit, no. It's because it's something that you really need to experience by yourself. Like, I would recommend you to stop the video, like, really, stop the video, download the game, play it, see the entire sequence, like, ending sequence, or if you are a bit more lazy, just watch a video of it, and come back. Then, you will see why I'm being like this, because it's something that really touched me, and I can somehow relate to it. I just recommend you to watch it yourself, okay? Whoa, slow down. There's still some stuff I want to mention that couldn't be contained in previous parts. So what we're going to do is, we're going to open them all, get the blender, and mix them all. If you want to leave the stage at any time after finishing it once because you only wanted to obtain the collectible or find the ally boss, where do you think the option to go to the stage select will be? Escape? Well, it will show you only 3 options: resume game, title screen, and exit. Where is it? I was in the same boat as you during the entire game. So when I wanted to leave, I had to take my time into killing myself with all the remaining lives I had. The funny thing is that there's a simpler way, but it's found at the bottom right part, hidden inside the inventory screen, not the options menu. And I only found this by accident while scrolling through it when I wanted to enable or disable upgrades. Now yes, the upgrades. Remember the collectibles I mentioned? There's 1 per stage, and you need to collect 4 of each to upgrade Megaman or Roll, depending if you obtain the word Rock or Roll. Megaman's upgrade is a 3rd Buster Charge, which widens even more the collision box of the projectile. Roll, on the other hand, gets a little extra hover after a double jump, which improves her platforming skills slightly. The good thing is that you don't need any of these upgrades to finish the game without any problems. The standard moveset did all the job for me, but the upgrades are still there if you want to use them. You can also toggle the upgrades on and off for each character if you want to. Okay, quick tip for any developer that watches this part. Implement the Buster Charge mechanic like this developer did. So implement and not, because I am that type of player that always keeps the Buster Charge when I'm playing as Megaman, and it annoys me a lot if that sound is present. So thank you, developer. This game contains some extra modes for further replayability, which is a standard time attack mode and a boss mode that are only unlocked when you finish the game. One takes time and the other takes the least amount of damage. Really beneficial modes for anyone that wants to train for a 0 damage buster only type of runs, or they just want an extra challenge. The amount of E-tanks I have seen throughout the game is astonishingly small. There hasn't been any times where I said, there's a lot of E-tanks around. This scarcity creates an urgency to keep the E-tanks and W-tank as long as possible and only use them in emergencies. And finally, having a weapon that has more than 1 use is something I want to see developed more in other fan games. The Bubble Shield, again, besides being the shield weapon, also lets you float if you are inside water, and Dragon Breath has the little quirk of actually being useless inside water as well. Sadly, not all of these weapons are expanded as those 2 were, and just gives me a taste of something that could have been even better for the rest of the boss weapons. Megaman Rock and Roll, where do I begin? You have shown me quite an excessive amount of polish, and you even integrated the story with gameplay. Like, you also made like solid and impressive level design that even made tutorials really fun to go through. I am deeply impressed how much a single person was able to achieve in the Megaman fangame department. You really show that you are more than capable of offering a deep and engaging Megaman experience, building on top of existing ones and making them your own with unique twists and original mechanics. Before playing this, my top favorite game of this style was Megaman Unlimited. But I have to say, once I finished Megaman Rock and Roll, I can confidently say that this is the best Megaman fangame I have ever played for now, beating Unlimited and Rock Force out of the park. Congratulations, Dennis. You made something you should be proud of, and I bet your father is proud of you as well. And even taking into account a couple things that I didn't like, this game still deserves the title of a masterpiece. And by doing so, this game receives the Must Play award with a score of 10 items out of 10. You really have to play this fan game. And if you did, do you think it deserves a perfect score? Are there some nitpicks you want to mention? Did you like my review? If so, like, comment and subscribe. If you don't want to miss future videos, consider turning on the bell as well. And if you want to speak directly to me or join my community, please check out my social media or join my Discord server. Thanks for watching this video and see you in 2 weeks, everyone. Adios.